Ladies and gentlemen, too often we waste our respect on people who don't deserve it. Those who exploit our kindness, manipulate systems, or rise through fear and deception. Respect should be earned, not demanded. Yet society teaches us to bow to titles, money, and power, rather than integrity, honesty, and character. We're told to be polite to the powerful, even when they abuse their influence. We're told to stay silent when authority gets it wrong. That ends today. We owe nothing to people who contribute nothing good to others. It's time to stop blindly respecting those who destroy, divide, and deceive. Respect isn't submission, it's recognition. And if someone's actions betray what they claim to be, then they deserve to be called out, not celebrated. Stop respecting them, them, figuratively, not with hate, but with defiance, courage, and truth. Respect must be earned, not demanded. Too often in society, we are conditioned from a young age to associate respect with position, age, or wealth, as if these factors automatically make someone worthy of admiration. But real respect comes from action. How a person treats others, how they show up in difficult moments, how they carry their values even when no one is watching. When we offer respect to someone simply because they hold a title or have power, we risk supporting systems and individuals who have done nothing to deserve our trust. We enable behavior that may be harmful, dishonest, or oppressive. Respecting someone who exploits others, who lies, or who manipulates the truth is not just misguided, it's dangerous. It allows those individuals to continue unchecked, protected by a false sense of legitimacy. True respect should come only after someone has shown integrity, consistency, and empathy. It is not owed, it is earned through choices, not status. And the moment someone in power betrays those principles, our respect should be the first thing we take back. To continue offering it out of habit or fear is to disrespect ourselves and everything we claim to stand for. Power without integrity deserves no admiration. Just because someone holds a position of influence does not mean they are worthy of our praise or loyalty. In fact, power in the wrong hands often becomes a weapon used not to uplift others, but to control, exploit, and dominate. The world is full of leaders, bosses, celebrities, and public figures who have climbed to the top not through merit or compassion, but through manipulation, deception, and cruelty. They wear masks of charm and professionalism, but behind closed doors, they operate with selfish motives and disregard for others. And yet people continue to admire them simply because they are visible, successful, or feared. This kind of blind admiration is what allows corruption to thrive. It lets toxic people continue their rise without accountability because we as a society have been taught to associate success with virtue. But success does not equal goodness. Influence does not equal wisdom. And authority does not equal moral strength. Without integrity, without the backbone to stand for what is right and the humility to admit when they're wrong, those in power become nothing more than well-dressed bullies. Admiration should be reserved for those who use their power responsibly, who lift others up rather than tear them down, who stay grounded even when elevated. To admire someone simply because they can command a room or control outcomes is to reward the illusion, not the truth. We have to start looking deeper than the surface, examining not just what people achieve, but how they achieve it and who they become in the process. Because power without integrity is not impressive, it's dangerous, and it should never be celebrated. Silence and politeness in the face of abuse fuel oppression. We are often taught that being respectful means staying quiet, not causing a scene, not challenging those in positions of authority. We're told that speaking up is rude, disruptive, or even dangerous. But what's truly dangerous is the habit of biting our tongues when we witness wrongdoing. When we choose politeness over truth or silence over justice, we become part of the problem. Oppression doesn't just thrive on the actions of the oppressors, it survives on the inaction of bystanders. Every time someone looks the other way, when a colleague is mistreated, when a person in power crosses a line, when injustice is clear but unchallenged, the system gains strength. It learns that it can get away with anything because no one will risk their comfort or safety to stop it. Silence is interpreted as approval, and politeness becomes a shield that allows cruelty to move forward, unchallenged and undisturbed. People suffering under the weight of abuse, whether in families, workplaces, institutions, or governments, don't need more observers nodding politely and avoiding conflict. They need voices, they need witnesses who won't be afraid to say, "This is wrong," even when it's uncomfortable. They need people who are willing to trade niceties for honesty, who won't be coerced into silence just to protect reputations or maintain peace. The truth is, peace built on silence is not peace at all, it's submission, and politeness that enables injustice is not a virtue, it's a betrayal. It is our responsibility to speak up even when our voice shakes, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Because every time we choose silence over action, we allow harm to continue unchecked, and eventually that harm reaches everyone. Courage means calling out false authority, not bowing to it. Real bravery isn't found in simply following rules or obeying power without question, it's found in the moments when we dare to challenge what doesn't sit right with our conscience. False authority exists everywhere, in institutions, in leaders, in workplaces, even within families. It's the kind of authority that demands obedience without offering fairness, that expects loyalty without earning trust, that uses fear to control instead of reason to lead. Too often, people confuse position with legitimacy, assuming that just because someone holds a title or has influence, they must be right. But that's not how justice works. Authority without accountability becomes dangerous, especially when it goes unchecked. It creates a culture where wrongdoings are swept under the rug, where people are afraid to question decisions, and where truth is manipulated to serve those at the top. In such environments, the courageous ones are not those who obey quietly, but those who refuse to be complicit. Speaking out against a person or system that misuses its power takes strength, especially when you know the cost might be your job, your relationships, or your reputation. But silence in the face of corruption only allows it to grow stronger. To call out false authority is not about being disrespectful or rebellious for the sake of chaos, it's about drawing a line. It's about refusing to let fear govern your values. It's about recognizing that just because something is the way things have always been doesn't mean it's right. And while standing up may isolate you at first, it often inspires others to find their voices too. Courage is contagious. The more we challenge unjust authority, the more we create space for honesty, fairness, and real leadership to rise. The goal is not to tear down structure for no reason, but to make sure those in power are truly worthy of the influence they hold. Bowing to authority without questioning it isn't respect, it's submission. And true courage demands more. Choose who you respect based on values, not status. In a world where status is often mistaken for substance, it's easy to fall into the trap of admiring people simply because they're famous, wealthy, powerful, or popular. We're bombarded with curated images of success on social media, in the news, and in our everyday lives, where appearance matters more than authenticity, and followers are mistaken for followers of truth. But the truth is, none of those things automatically make someone worthy of our respect. Respect should not be handed out based on what someone has achieved in the public eye or how many people cheer for them. It should be grounded in who they are at their core, how they treat others when no one is watching, what they stand for when it's not convenient, and whether they live in alignment with their words. Values like honesty, kindness, humility, courage, and integrity are what truly matter. These are not qualities that come with money or titles, they are choices made daily, often in the smallest and quietest moments. Someone might have no fame, no wealth, and no authority, but carry themselves with a quiet dignity that earns more respect than any public figure. On the other hand, someone with all the outward signs of success might lack any real moral compass. When we respect people based on status alone, we set a dangerous example. We teach others that surface matters more than substance, and that image is more important than impact. We need to get better at asking the deeper questions. Does this person live by values I admire? Do they contribute something meaningful to the lives of others? Are they consistent when it's hard? And do they take responsibility for their actions? If the answer is no, then why are we giving them our respect? Elevating people who don't live by any real standard just because they're well known only strengthens a culture of emptiness and ego. But when we choose to respect people for their values, regardless of their position in society, we send a message that character matters, that doing the right thing means more than looking the part, that respect is not about status, it's about substance. You don't owe anyone respect just because they're older, richer, or louder. This idea has been ingrained in many of us from childhood, that age automatically grants wisdom, that money equals superiority, and that the loudest voice in the room must be right. But respect isn't a default setting. It's not something we owe to people just because they've lived longer, earned more, or know how to dominate a conversation. Age, wealth, and volume are not qualifications for moral authority or emotional intelligence. Someone can be older and still be immature, narrow-minded, or abusive. Someone can be wealthy and still be deeply unethical. Someone can speak over others and still be completely wrong. When we blindly respect people based on these superficial traits, we enable entitlement. We give people the impression that they're above accountability just because they check certain boxes. That's how toxic hierarchies form when younger voices are dismissed, when the poor are overlooked, and when quiet truth is drowned out by arrogant noise. Real respect comes from how someone treats others, especially those they don't need anything from. It comes from how they respond to disagreement, how they handle failure, how they own up to their mistakes. None of that is guaranteed by age, bank account size, or how forcefully they speak. We have to stop confusing respect with fear or obligation. You are not disrespectful for questioning someone older than you if they're wrong. You are not out of line for not admiring someone just because they're successful by society's standards, and you're not rude for refusing to be talked over, shamed, or manipulated by someone who uses volume to cover up their insecurity or ignorance. Respect is a mutual exchange rooted in understanding, not a one-way street owed to those who simply demand it. The world doesn't get better by preserving outdated power dynamics. It gets better when we learn to challenge them with clarity, confidence, and values that actually matter. Respecting yourself means refusing to respect those who disrespect you. It's easy to fall into the habit of tolerating mistreatment, especially when it comes from people in positions of influence, or from those we've been conditioned to honor, family members, bosses, teachers, or so-called leaders. We're told to keep the peace, to not make waves, to be the bigger person, but there's nothing noble about staying quiet while someone consistently belittles, manipulates, or disrespects you. That's not maturity, that's self-abandonment. And every time you allow someone to treat you poorly without consequence, you send a message to yourself that your boundaries, your feelings, and your dignity don't matter. That's the slow erosion of self-respect. True self-respect isn't loud or aggressive, it's steady, clear, and unwavering. It shows up when you walk away from someone who refuses to speak to you with decency. It shows up when you choose not to engage with those who make you feel small or unworthy. It shows up when you set standards for how you will and will not be treated, regardless of someone else's status, history, or power. It doesn't matter if someone is older, more experienced, or in a higher position. If they continually disrespect you, then respecting them in return becomes a form of self-betrayal. People who genuinely deserve your respect will never demand it through fear or guilt. They will earn it through consistency, care, and reciprocity. They won't punish you for having needs or boundaries. They won't shame you for standing up for yourself. The moment someone uses their position to undermine your sense of worth, they lose the right to your admiration. You don't owe anyone your tolerance if what they offer you is contempt. Respecting yourself means honoring your own voice even when others try to silence it, protecting your peace even when it costs connection, and refusing to shrink just to make someone else feel bigger. When you truly respect yourself, you stop clinging to people who only know how to tear you down. You stop asking for validation from those who can't even give you basic decency. And you realize that the strongest form of respect you can ever show is the kind you give to yourself. Blind loyalty is not respect, it's surrender. When we follow someone without question, without thinking critically about their actions or intentions, we give up one of the most powerful tools we have, our ability to choose who and what we stand behind. Loyalty can be a beautiful thing when it's rooted in shared values, mutual respect, and earned trust. But when it becomes blind, when it turns into automatic obedience or unexamined devotion, it becomes dangerous. It allows people to act without accountability. It turns harmful behavior into something excusable just because it's coming from our side or our leader. And that kind of loyalty is not strength, it's weakness disguised as virtue. There are people in power who depend on blind loyalty to maintain control. They feed off it. They reward it, they use it to protect themselves from consequences and to silence those who dare to think independently. They frame dissent as betrayal, and they teach their followers that questioning them is the same as turning against them. But asking hard questions is not disloyalty, it's responsibility. Challenging injustice is not disrespect, it's courage. And refusing to follow someone off a moral cliff just because you once believed in them is not a failure, it's growth. True respect includes the freedom to speak up when someone you care about is in the wrong. It includes the ability to walk away when your values are no longer aligned. Loyalty should not require you to sacrifice your integrity, your voice, or your peace of mind. It should never be used as a weapon to guilt you into silence or submission. If someone demands your loyalty at the cost of your self-respect or your moral compass, they don't deserve either. Respect is not about staying loyal, no matter what. It's about having the wisdom and strength to know when someone no longer deserves your support, and the courage to act on that truth. Flattery is not the same as respect, and those who constantly seek praise often lack the substance to deserve it. In every environment, workplaces, social groups, politics, even families, there are people who thrive on compliments, who need constant validation to feel important. They surround themselves with people who tell them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. They confuse admiration with loyalty, and they treat anyone who disagrees as a threat rather than a potential source of truth or growth. But flattery is shallow, it's easy to give, often dishonest, and usually driven by fear, ambition, or manipulation. Respect, on the other hand, runs deeper. It is not handed out to inflate egos but is earned through character, action, and consistency. When people seek flattery instead of truth, they often create toxic environments where honesty is punished and mediocrity is celebrated, as long as it serves the one in charge. They build echo chambers where only praise is allowed and criticism is cast aside as disloyalty or jealousy. But real leaders, real friends, and real people of substance don't fear the truth, they welcome it. They don't need to be told they're amazing every day to feel worthy. They let their actions speak, and they value those who challenge them to be better over those who blindly applaud them. It's dangerous to mistake flattery for genuine respect because it means we reward those who perform rather than those who lead with integrity. It teaches people that being liked is more important than being honest, and that sounding good matters more than doing good. In the long run, this erodes trust, weakens communities, and allows those with fragile egos to wield unchecked influence. If someone constantly needs to be praised, admired, or placed on a pedestal, ask yourself what they're hiding underneath all that noise. Because real strength doesn't beg for approval, it stands firm with or without applause. Respect doesn't come from how many compliments you receive, but from how you act when no one is watching, how you treat people who can't offer you anything in return, and how open you are to being held accountable. Those who crave flattery often fear reflection. And those who deserve respect don't demand it. They earn it through who they are, not who they pretend to be. We should never confuse compliance with respect. Just because someone follows orders or adheres to the norms and expectations set by those in power doesn't mean they respect the system, the authority, or the values behind them. Compliance is often a survival tactic, a way to avoid conflict or retribution, but it doesn't equate to genuine respect. Too often people mistake outward agreement or conformity for internal conviction, assuming that because someone is willing to go along with the program, they must believe in it wholeheartedly. But true respect is not a silent acquiescence, it's an active engagement, a willingness to question, to challenge, and to examine the principles and people that guide us. Just because someone obeys the rules doesn't mean they agree with them, and just because someone is quiet in the face of wrongdoing doesn't mean they endorse what's happening. Compliance is sometimes driven by fear, fear of losing a job, of facing backlash, or of being ostracized from a group. People will do what they're told to survive, not because they hold those in power in high regard. The problem with this is that it enables harmful systems and toxic individuals to flourish unchecked. The more people comply, the more those in positions of authority are emboldened to continue their harmful practices, knowing they can rely on fear and conformity to maintain control. When we confuse compliance with respect, we fail to see the real issues beneath the surface. We fail to recognize the people who might be quietly suffering, whose voices are stifled by the overwhelming pressure to conform. Real respect means recognizing that there is always room for improvement, that no system or individual is beyond reproach, and that questioning authority isn't a sign of disrespect, it's a sign of healthy engagement. It's about acknowledging that real change and progress come from individuals who are willing to challenge the status quo, to stand up when things aren't right, and to push for better, even when doing so might not be the easiest or safest path. True respect isn't about keeping the peace at any cost, it's about fostering an environment where people feel empowered to speak their truth, to hold others accountable, and to advocate for what's right, even if it's uncomfortable. We must learn to distinguish between compliance, where people obey out of fear, convenience, or conformity, and true respect, which is rooted in a shared understanding of what is just and valuable. Respect isn't a passive act, it's an active choice. It requires a willingness to speak out, to stand firm, and to make decisions based on your values, even when the world around you is pushing you to do otherwise. When we confuse the two, we allow harmful dynamics to persist and rob ourselves of the opportunity to foster genuine, meaningful relationships and systems built on fairness and mutual respect. True respect challenges the status quo, it does not simply go along with it.